Hi, folks. Welcome to another Balbix webinar. Super excited to have you. Just give it a couple of minutes for folks to roll in, and then we'll get started right away. Thanks for your patience. Super excited to see everyone from wherever you are. The room is filling up, Ed. No pressure. Hi again to everyone, whoever has joined in the last 30 seconds or so. We'll just get started in a minute, letting folks roll in. We're super excited to kick off this webinar. It's going to be fast-paced, short, quick. We're going to be in and out in 30 minutes, so sit tight. If you leave, you might see the webinar end before you come back, so stay where you are. All right, we are at 10:02 Pacific, 1:02 Eastern. It's time to get started. Welcome, everyone. Super excited to have you on this mock presentation, CISO in the Boardroom. This is a new format. I hope you guys will all enjoy it. I'm really excited about it. And the reason why we thought about this topic is we wanted to provide something to the CISOs and our community that they find valuable. And board presentation is a topic that comes up time and again. I know as a CISO, it is really, really hard to get in front of a board and present something that is coherent, articulate, timely. There's a lot of expectation. And based on the feedback we heard, we wanted to create the situation room right here on this virtual panel. And so we got lucky. We got Ed on our side. Ed, thanks for joining us. Ed has done this more times than he can count. And he's going to provide us the context on how to present to the board. He's going to be in the boardroom presenting today like it is in the boardroom, engaging with the board members. And you'll get to see all the nuances, the body language from whatever you can see. He's even dressed up in the right way with a suit, missing a tie. So we'll give him one later. No, jokes aside, we wanted to make it as real as possible. And then on the other side, we have Gaurav Banga, whose day job is fixing cybersecurity products, but today he's a board member who's going to grill Ed, make sure that he doesn't get away easy, and ask some tough questions, just like every CISO gets in the boardroom. And so without further ado, let's get in the situation room. So what the situation room or the boardroom is going to look like is, just to give you a heads up, it's going to be 10 minutes of presentation and some board to CISO Q&A. Please queue up your questions as well along the way. We'll take them towards the end. So we'll start with Ed's presentation, some board questions, and then we'll come back. Ed is going to come back and talk about a few key takeaways from this presentation, and then we'll take the audience question, and then we'll wrap up. So quite a few things, but just wanted to give you guys a lay of the land. So back to you guys, Gaurav, your chance to welcome Ed in the boardroom.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Umang, and thank you, Ed, for being the CISO on this call. I mean, you are the CISO. I met Ed a long time ago, and he first started when we first started talking. This was one of the topics, right? Ed helped me think from a CISO's perspective, and there is no better concept than thinking of the CISO's perspective from the perspective of the CISO's boss, which is the board. This is going to be very interesting, and I'll just add one more thing, which is I go to a lot of board meetings. In fact, I've been a CEO now for 24 years, 23 years, and been to an officer of a public company in the middle. And each times, the one thing that strikes me as a board meeting is indeed very, very different. There is, it's you have to talk in a certain way. You're expected to communicate in a very specific way. And so let's bring it on. I mean, I am really excited for today. So over to you, Ed.
Well, great. Thanks. Let me set the stage here. So we've invented a company called Acme, and public mid-sized company, and we have them making avionics, although it really doesn't matter. I have them with $1 billion of revenue, stock kind of and I'm the guy in charge of the security group. I've been there for three years, 22, 23 into 24, and Gaurav's on the board, and I'm giving a presentation. What I'm going to do is a little different than what I usually do when I'm lecturing about board stuff. I'll give you an analogy. When you learn math in high school, the math teacher shows you perfect math. Here's the proof, here's the theorem, it's all perfect. Today, I'm not going to show you perfect. I'm going to show you some stuff I really pulled from real presentations of people that I coach. So warts and all. And also, we had fun with this. We're going to do it in 10 minutes because anybody listening who's had to do this knows that you prepare a 2-hour presentation. That becomes an hour. That becomes 45 minutes. Then when you're all set to go, they say you have 10 minutes before lunch. So I'm trying to show something, frankly, warts and all. So every one of the charts here that I'm showing is more or less just changing a few words from real charts I've seen. And I thought they were good ones because they're not always my favorite. But as Gaurav will agree, because he's done a lot of this too, these presentations are always so curated that usually what you end up presenting is a result of a committee as opposed to like this perfect thing. So I always cringe at the training where they say, oh, here's how you do it, lay it out. I always say, boy, if only they worked where I worked. It's never that clean. So we're going to assume that I've been building a security team and that as with many mid-sized companies, I'm using Microsoft and, have some monitoring using MSS, but we had a ransomware. Now, most of you listening know that experience, that when you're going into a board, it could have been this, it could have been that, it could have been an APT, could have been an insider threat, could have been ransomware, sort of doesn't matter. But the bottom line is that when there is an incident, the board wants to know, are we okay? Where are we trying to go? And how are you getting there? Like as I'm coaching, and again, Umang and Gaurav and I talked a lot about this, that those are the things that you want to know. Like when you go to the doctor, that you could go there and you could learn about health and come on with brochures and you could do this, you could do that. But the main thing you want to know from the doctor is, hey, am I okay? Are we okay now? And if I'm not, how do I get okay? What do I have to do? I mean, that's every board member thinks that. And as I'm going through this, see if it makes any sense to you, because I've intentionally programmed these to be realistic, not perfect. And then Gaurav's going to play the role of like the board member, kind of pushing me in this. Did you say that? Say this. Probably, exposing that maybe I didn't do exactly a perfect job. But if you're watching as well, watch with a critical eye and see what you think. So we're going to assume that they just said, hey, listen, Ed, welcome to the meeting. We only have a few minutes here. But after our incident, could you give the board a quick briefing on how we're doing and what's going on? It would be just like that. And again, I've been on the board of Fortune 500 companies and also been as the CISO of a Fortune 10 company doing this. And it's always like that. It's kind of, okay, quickly get through it. And this is what it would be sort of like. So the first one, cover chart here, just saying status and planning presentation to the Acme board. By the way, that wording would have probably been set by the board secretary, not by you. So a lot of times you go in and you see your presentation and it's not even the title you put there. You might be seeing it for the first time. You go, oh, is that what I'm doing? And God help you if it's not what you were planning to say, but luckily I could set it up this way. So this is something that is pretty typical. I would tell Gaurav that our present status is we're stable. And I always think that's a good idea in the beginning to just say right off the bat, We are not under attack right now. We paid the ransomware. We look like we're operational. And hey, board, I think right now we're okay. We don't really know exactly who did that to us, because that's always a big board topic. FBI saying it might be nation state. And we have a consulting firm. I didn't put the actual name of the consulting firm, but it might be Deloitte or McKinsey or whomever. It'd probably be some company that would not be your auditor, that would have come in and recommended some changes. And I shared with Gaurav and Mang that I think that in this case, more often than not, visibility of attack surface is always an issue. Comes up over and over and over again. And I thought it made sense for this status to point out to the board that this is a problem and that we need to do something. I would then say, does anybody have any questions? And usually they might ask something just to reinforce the fact that we're not under attack right now. Because if we were, as I think Gaurav would agree, this would be a very different presentation if we're actively engaged in this sort of cyber warfare and we don't really know where we stand. But that's not the case in this presentation. There's usually a dashboard. This is one that I think originated with either SANS or World 50 or something. I kind of see this come up a lot. And usually there's a dashboard that would be shared with the board on a regular basis. You can see this is a risk dashboard. It lists the active sort of top 5 risks. This is very typical. And the challenge that I always sort of have with these is that connecting this to the incident and connecting it to where we want to go is often not all that terribly clear. But what you can see here is that operational disruption is the thing that caused the problem for this company. It's still an issue. And we're going to try and make the case that to deal with this, we need to do a better job of attack surface management. Now, what is usually the case, at least with the CISOs that I coach and deal with, is that there usually is an action plan that's done in conjunction with a partner. Oftentimes, we're going to buy a new tool, we're going to implement a new capability. And Gaurav and I have been friends for probably a decade and a half. And the presumption here is that it would be very reasonable to want to roll out Balbix at this point, or roll out something along those lines. This is what you'd probably see. You'd see a list of the deficiencies that would point to the kinds of problems that we think we have. So we would say we've identified, and again, back here, we would have this consulting firm probably providing a document with some findings. And these are some of the findings that I would absolutely expect to see. Gaurav's probably laughing because workflow challenge is always a gigantic issue, creates big compliance problems, and it creates visibility gaps. Risk-based vulnerability management is something I've been talking about forever. And then the quantification needs to be a little bit cleaner. And then this last one being probably the biggest issue of all, that if you don't have an inventory that you trust, then you're not going to be able to secure your infrastructure. This is a problem between sort of IT and security teams. What we find is it's not uncommon for each team to more or less either claim or just hope that the other team would take the lead on it, because nobody really enjoys doing inventory unless you have a good, solid tool that would help. So we'd point these out to the board. They might be nodding, saying that looks reasonable. They'd have a copy of the executive report in front of them, maybe just the executive summary, and it would provide some background. And then I'd show them that there are platforms that can really help here. And this is the Balbix platform. And, it could be whatever. If you decided that you were going to roll out Splunk, then you'd show them more or less how Splunk addresses the findings. See, it's not reasonable to have findings like here under workflow. If that's a problem, then the solution had better address that. And you can see that obviously there's workflow capability in the commercial tool that I would be recommending. And we'd be suggesting to the board that we're going to use this as a means for taking us to the next level, for addressing what we found from our consultant. And I would then lay out a plan. I'd say, look, we're going to do POC right away. I will come back to you in our December meeting. and show you how the POC is going. We're probably not going to implement all of these capabilities right away, but we'll get started and I'll show you what we've done, and we can start checking off the things that we're doing and demonstrating in POC. Initial phase one, at that point, I'll explain in December what this will look like. It might be the entire platform to a portion of the enterprise, or it could be a portion of the platform to the whole enterprise. We'll have to decide. And our goal is by something like second quarter next year to really have this covering the company. And I would hope that by summertime next year, that I can provide status back to the board. So this is a very typical presentation. As you can see, I did status. I had our usual dashboard that shows the risks. They would recognize this as something I show to them every whether it's quarterly, monthly, whatever. I'd lay out what the deficiencies are that need to be fixed to address what the consultants are seeing as our weaknesses. And then I'd propose a platform, a partner that can come in and address these things. And here's the plan. This is how we would go about doing it. So this is, I think I did that, Gaurav, in about 10 minutes. Now we're going to make believe that you're going to give me either kudos or heck here, but I suspect you might have some questions, and I'll go ahead and we can mock through some of the questions you might have.
Hey, yeah, Ed, that was fantastic. 10 minutes, almost to the dot. So could you go back and great stuff, man. This is very clear. Stuart, could you go back to one more slide over here? Like this, one more, please. Your very first slide that you had. So you said these guys had, we are stable and the systems are operational. Did we have to report this to the SEC?
Well, that's one of the reasons we're here talking to you. You know, there's a possibility that this is material. The ransomware was light. We didn't really go down during this. We didn't have a lot of customer impact. And our feeling is that with investors, at least from legal, the investors are probably not, it's not necessary that we would notify them because we don't believe this to be material. We went over it with our insurance company. They thought that it seemed immaterial. Legal seemed immaterial, so we did not report this to the SEC.
And are you're comfortable with the methodology? Can you speak a little bit about how you're determining whether it's material or not? Like who all have been involved in that determination of material? You mentioned the insurance company.
Right.
Your team or IT or the business?
If somebody on our team used that FAIR model to do a loss analysis, and they came up with something that struck us as low single-digit impact in terms of revenue. And a lot of times it's that 10% number that we've seen quoted over and over again. So the lawyers thought didn't seem necessary to follow the 8K. Now we're still doing our work here, still debriefing with the FBI, and obviously the FBI knows that this is going on. So we are working with the federal government. It's not like this is being done in some secretive mode. We're working with the US federal government. They do know this is happening, and I think we should be all right.
Okay, that's very helpful. And then if you go to the next slide, I have one more question on this. So we have the plan that you said, which is mostly, if I understand, to address the top issue. Will it
Yes.
help us with these, the other items over here, financial loss, intellectual property, all that?
I think some of them, like usually reputational damage, is something that's more around narrative attacks and fake news and things. There might be some ancillary benefit, but the main thing is that we need to have a better control of our workflow, of our inventory, of our understanding of what's going on. Because we do worry, because we're a manufacturing firm, that disruption will create something material, like an embarrassing post about, hopefully not about you, Gaurav, but maybe our CEO or something would be unacceptable, but certainly wouldn't be material. But if our manufacturing was down for a day, that would be a disaster. So really, it's around that hard problem of inventory, visibility, understanding our attack surface. That's what we need. And down the road, I might be coming back to you for some assistance on things like, AI-based tools to detect fake news or reputation or so on. But right now, that's not, you can see it's a much lesser contribution on the chart here, but it is, look, it's our fifth top risk. It's not like we think it's nothing, but it's not anywhere near as big as the disruption impact.
All right, and then one last question that I have. This is very, very clear. Thank you for sharing that. Over here, where does we have made all these investments in the past, and we've invested in CrowdStrike, and I think we bought some backup solution. How do they fit in with all this stuff? I mean, I'm trying to figure out, where do those investments help us?
It's funny. We've talked as a team and as a board about, gosh, we just keep buying tools. Why do we need more tools? The fundamental reason, in a nutshell, is because the offense is automating. I mean, as the offense evolves and improves their ability to come after us, we have no choice but to keep upgrading our tooling. I mean, I wish I could tell you that we buy a tool, we put it in place, and we leave it there for 20 years. If only, right? The challenge you have is that we're dealing with a pretty active adversary. What most of my peers are telling me, other CISOs, is that this risk management metaphor, while these are just words and words we've been using a long time, it's a good way of sort of bringing together a number of different capabilities that I believe have been orphaned. I've told you this before, and I'll say it again, the asset inventory has always been the weakest point in our security program. It's almost like I wish this diagram here could be flipped upside down, where CASM would be first, because I really believe that we've not had a state in the last as many years as I've been here, the 3 years I've been here in the company, but my predecessors tell me the same, where we really understood what our assets were. I just don't think we've ever known. So when you ask me, are our assets, safe? As I said in the first chart, well, I think we're in a stable mode right now, but I would be lying if I said I have a real good understanding of where, our, not just assets in terms of data, but, just about everything, all of the applications and how they link up to infrastructure, and, a lot of the things that have been referenced as inventory gaps in past assessments are still true. So that's why I think we have to invest in a tool.
And IT doesn't solve this inventory problem?
I think you should bring those IT guys in here later and ask them why they're not helping. So, I mean, we have a good partnership with them, but what's happened is, because it lives between security and IT, I would say in about, the 75% of the companies that we deal with, and we belong to a number of different forums and our ISAC and so on, the security team does take the lead on this, both from a budget and also operational perspective.
Well, that's very helpful. Thank you, Ed. I have no more questions.
Great.
That was fantastic. Thanks again. Ed, do you want to give any other sort of voiceover tips to the Q&A? And for audience, there's a chat button at the bottom, or rather a Q&A button at the bottom. If you guys want to enter your questions, we have 6 minutes, so we happy to take any questions you have. But any recap points for you, Ed? How did you prepare for this? It must have been hard.
Not at all. I mean, I think that the most important thing for people listening is that this illusion that you get from a lot of training companies that board presentations are clean and beautiful is wrong. The reality is that there's so many different forces and individuals and groups that need to sort of participate in the creation of the story for the board, that what ends up reaching the board is a collage of different things. You have a board secretary, for example, whose job it is to make sure that there's about this much good news, about this much bad news, and about this much mundane. So, for example, if you've got a tough message during a board meeting where there is a big problem, a financial problem, an operational problem, the last thing the board secretary is going to let you do is bring your security problem at a time when we need to focus on something much more urgent. So you might find, I'm trying to deliver a security problem and they're suppressing it. They're not suppressing it. They're just trying to make sure that the dialogue is appropriately sort of as proportional to the kind of response that you want from the CEO and the rest of the board. So it's like the other parts of your life. I mean, from the time you're a teenager, when do you ask mom and dad for the keys to the car? There's times you ask and there's times you don't ask, and it's like that. It's this interaction. And the other thing is, I intentionally put charts in there that didn't sort of flow perfectly. They look different. They say different things. They're formatted differently to show that a lot of times these things are picked and chosen from other decks and they're slid in. And you have to get comfortable with that. And you should also get comfortable with the idea that the deck I just showed, perhaps 10 minutes ago, might have been 20 charts. And now on a dime, it's 4 charts. And that's something that a CISO needs to be comfortable with, because I guarantee you that's what will happen all the time. You'll be moved around, your time shortened, and that's why, I didn't put up sort of this perfect thing that I'd spent 6 months on, but rather took actual charts that I see. I obviously took out the attribution. You wouldn't know who they're from. Maybe some of them are listening, they're like, wow, you took my chart. But it's not, but these are not charts that, in any way reflect back on any company, but these are real things that get presented to boards. And you get a sense that you shouldn't feel badly if the presentation that you are giving is a little bit less than what you would have hoped it to be. It's very typical.
Yeah. A couple questions started coming in, so I'll take them and either of you can answer. So the first question was, the ransom was paid. Is it okay legally? Which you're not a lawyer, so be careful as you answer that. But you teach law, I think, so that's okay. Was there any approval read from committee or board or regulator?
There always is. This board would have been fully engaged in all of that. To be perfectly honest with you, what we've watched is the mechanics of getting a ransom paid usually is more complicated than making the decision. It's like, okay, pay the ransom. And then you go, well, where do we get Bitcoin? How do we do it? And they're companies, they're like breach coaches that come in and can help you deal with that kind of a problem. But yeah, every board would have known that that was something that's going on. And again, it's not necessarily material when you pay a ransom. It's not necessarily the case that investors should be completely freaked out if you paid a $50,000 fine and you're a $1 billion company. That's not material. Now, if it's a big material thing and it's a whole mess, and then maybe it would be. But my presumption here is that the board, the consulting firm, the FBI, there's so many different groups involved here that everybody would have made sure that that's done properly. And whether it's legal or not is kind of irrelevant. Of course, you can pay a ransom. There may be political reasons not to. There might be pressure from an administration not to. But in most jurisdictions, you can pay a ransom.
Yeah. There's a question about, how do you ask for more budget from the board?
Boards don't approve budgets. Boards are there to govern. And you would do the similar presentation with the senior leadership team. Like Gaurav, if he was playing the role of CFO, then I would never give the presentation I just gave, because the CFO would say, how much is this going to cost? But a board should not be asking how much it should cost, because they're not there to manage. They're there to get a general sense that you know what you're doing. And it's the 3 things I said. Are we okay? Yes or no? That a board, it's reasonable for them to ask that. Is there something we're working toward? Tell me what it is. And do you have everything you need to get there? Do you have a plan? That's what boards are interested in, not, what's the budget? Do you have enough head count? Is this CapEx, OpEx? Totally inappropriate for boards to get into any of that. You might get board members who'll ask because they're not always perfectly trained, especially new ones who don't know what governance is about. But you're not there to manage the company. You don't pick the color of the carpets. That's not what you do. You're there to evaluate leadership and to be there providing judgment on big decisions. So you would never ask a board for a budget.
That's awesome. We're almost out of time, so we had one last poll questions. for the audience. What we wanted to know from our audience today was, would you recommend this webinar recording to a colleague? We'll send you the recording. We'll send you some presentation materials to follow up to help you present to the board more effectively. And let us know if there are any other topics you want to hear about. We love to follow up on a similar format. If you like this one, and then if you would like a demo of Balbix, if this was helpful to you, we're happy to show you what we have that can help you present a dashboard to the board. We help you build and also recommend something that is more actionable for you. So if you're interested, happy to help you, support you there. But overall, great work, Ed. Great work, Gaurav. Thanks again for joining us. This was awesome. We learned a lot. I really appreciate your time, Ed, and hopefully we can get you in for more of these.
My pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.